Rachel, mother of Hersh Goldberg-Polin, welcome to Jerusalem Dateline. Your son is in Hamas captivity, but tell us a little bit about Hersh.
So Hersh is a laid-back, fun-loving, funny with a dry, dark sense of humor. He was planning a 2-year trip around the world, and his ticket was for December 27th, 2023. God willing, he will come home and get the treatment that he needs, and one day he will go on that trip. On October 4th, a Wednesday, the Wednesday before this, went up north in Israel to go to a music festival that was happening up north. But on Friday the 6th, he called in the afternoon and he said, "You won't believe it. They're closing this music festival and I'm coming home." He said, "But the good news is that I could go to synagogue with you and I'll come to Shabbat dinner afterwards." He said, "But I am going to meet with my friend Aner Shapira and we're going to go do something fun after dinner." Hersh had just returned from a 9-week trip in Europe where he went to 6 different music festivals. He was obsessed with music festivals. So when we were at dinner, he was regaling us with tales of all of these different, interesting, amazing people he had met everywhere. And then right around 11 o'clock, he kissed John. He kissed me. He even hugged our hostess and said thank you. And then he turned around in the doorway and he looked at me very casually and he said, "Love you, see you tomorrow." And the next morning, I was still having a cup of tea at the kitchen table when right around 8 o'clock, the bomb sirens started to go off here in Jerusalem, which is unusual. I woke up the girls quickly and we got into our bomb shelter. So we came out after 10 minutes, and normally on the Jewish Sabbath, I don't use my phone, I don't use technology. So we didn't know what exactly was going on, but I knew that Hersh and Aner were sleeping outside somewhere. And I said to my girls, I'm turning on my phone, and 2 WhatsApps popped up that had come in at 8:11 simultaneously, 2 in a row. The first one said, "I love you," and the second one said, "I'm sorry." I immediately knew something horrible was happening, and I knew he knew that something horrible was happening, and that's why he was apologizing. I think he thought he was going to be killed, and that's, I think, what he was apologizing for, is that he knew we were going to be in terrible pain. And I tried calling him back, and I tried writing to him. And what we came to find out from witnesses is that Hersh and Aner were at the Nova Music Festival, and when the festival came under attack, the boys and 2 other friends escaped to a car and tried to come north back to Jerusalem. The road was lined with Hamas gunmen who were shooting at point-blank range through the windshields and killing everybody in the cars. So there's an iconic picture of a bunch of cars that, created this huge traffic jam because there was no access to the road because all of the people in these cars were dead. So Hersh and Aner and their 2 friends made a U-turn and started to go south to escape the shooting. But then they were driving directly into the rocket fire. So they and many others abandoned their cars and went running into roadside bomb shelters. Hersh and Aner ended up in a 5-foot by 8-foot bomb shelter. There were 29 of them in that bomb shelter. Hamas came to the doorway and were tossing in hand grenades. But Aner was standing in the doorway, and he kept picking them up and throwing them out, picking them up and throwing them out. He was successful 7 times, and tragically on the 8th time, the bomb exploded in his hand and killed him. And then Hamas came to the doorway and they threw in 3 hand grenades, which detonated, causing a lot of carnage because of the small 5-foot by 8-foot and everybody packed in. And then they came to the doorway and they were just firing machine gun fire into the room. So most of those young people were dead.
No wonder anybody survived.
The witnesses we spoke to they considered themselves lucky they were trapped underneath the dead bodies. So they could pretend to be dead. They were covered in blood and body parts. They're the ones who told us what happened next. They said after a couple minutes of the dust settling, Hamas entered. There were 4 young men who were on the opposite wall who were all wounded but clearly alive. And they were ordered to stand up. And when they stood up, that's when these witnesses who were hiding under the dead bodies told us that Hersh's left arm from the elbow down had been blown off. There's a piece where you see Hersh and a couple other boys being marched from the bomb shelter, being loaded onto the pickup truck at gunpoint. And you see when Hersh goes to sit down, the stump where his left arm used to be. But you also see that he does not lose consciousness. He appears very calm. I know that he is in shock and trauma. You see these other people also being loaded onto the pickup truck and taken into the direction of Gaza.
Do you know anything about whether he maybe got medical treatment or anything like that?
We were told by those hostages who were released that their first stop was for medical treatment when they were taken into Gaza. They probably didn't anticipate to have 252 hostages. We are hopeful that he was treated. And so we are hopeful that, and we are told to continue to pray that no news means good news.